Well, welcome everyone. Again, this is Michael Gallagher, President of the Stevie Awards, and the topic of today's webinar is how to enter the American Business Awards. I'm joined on this call by my colleague Ann White. Say hello, Ann.
Hi there. Hello everybody, and welcome to the webinar.
Among other things, Ann edits our weekly email newsletter, and she also oversees much of the administration of our judging process. Over the next 40 minutes or so, we'll tell you about the American Business Awards, about their history, about what the schedule is for this year's American Business Awards, which is the 9th annual. Very importantly, how to review and select categories, how to write and submit your entries, a little bit about how the judging process works, some best practices that we recommend you follow, a couple of things that are important if you're familiar with the ABAs at all about what's new and different this year. And then we'll open it up for question and answer. And in your GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar control panel, you'll see a place where you can pose questions in writing to us. And at the end of this presentation, Ann will sort through the questions and pick some of them to pose to me for the benefit of the entire group. If we don't get to your question today, or if you have any questions at any other time, by all means, please do call us or email us. We're happy to answer questions. We treat all entrants equally. We want all of you to have just as good a shot at winning a Stevie Award as anybody else. So we're very happy to help you. The American Business Awards are open to all organizations in the USA. It is the oldest and largest of our 4 Stevie Awards competitions. The 3 others being the International Business Awards, the Stevie Awards for Women in Business, and the Stevie Awards for Sales and Customer Service. And we're not going to be talking about those today. Each of those have their own schedules. Each of them will have their own webinars, which we'll announce at some point in the coming months, and you're welcome to participate in those. Those 3 other competitions are open to all organizations worldwide, including American organizations, but the focus today is just on the American Business Awards and the opportunities available in that competition for organizations in the USA. The ABAs are now in their 9th year, and the Stevie Award trophy is made by the same company that makes the Oscar, the Emmy, and other prestigious awards. There's a photograph of it. The name of the company is R.S. Owens. They're in Chicago. The Stevie Award trophy, although it doesn't look like an Oscar, is Oscar-like in some ways in that it weighs just about what an Oscar weighs, about 8 pounds. It's a little bit taller than an Oscar. An Oscar's, I think, about 12 inches. The Stevie Award is about 16 inches. It holds aloft a crystal triangle that represents the hierarchy of human needs as posited by psychologist Abraham Maslow, and at the bottom of the pyramid are basic human needs like food and shelter, and at the pinnacle, when all other needs are met, is he posited that people seek the recognition of their peers, and that is precisely what the conferring of a Stevie Award signifies. So it's a very lovely trophy. We've heard from people that when they win a Stevie Award, they actually feel like they've won something significant, and we like to hear that. We are very, the American Business Awards are an omnibus program, meaning they recognize achievement in every facet of the workplace, from the management suite down to the loading dock. There are management categories for Executive of the Year in many different industries, for Chairman of the Year, Finance Executive of the Year. There are categories for functional disciplines such as marketing, corporate communications and public relations, human resources, information technology, customer service and support, and many types of media categories. And we'll get into a discussion of all those types of categories and the requirements for them. We're a very web-centric program, meaning that almost everything happens on the American Business Awards website. Most entrants submit their entries directly through the website. We encourage you to do that, and I'll show you how to do that in a few minutes. Most of the judging takes place on the website as well. We have every year more than 200 professionals across the USA, and in some cases outside the USA, participating in the judging process. Most of them participate at their convenience online. In a handful of cases for categories where most of the entries come in offline. For example, for Best Annual Report or Best Brochure, most of the entries in those categories come in offline. We will have a couple of judging sessions in New York and Washington, D.C. With creative and corporate communications professionals to judge entries in those categories. But again, most entries are judged online. This is the schedule for the 2011 ABAs, the remaining schedule. And I say remaining schedule because we did have 2 early bird entry deadlines in the fall. And I would encourage you in the future to be aware of the schedule of the ABAs early so that you can take advantage of those early bird deadlines with discounted entry fees. So for the 2012 ABAs, for example, we will have early bird entry deadlines this coming fall, most likely one in November and one in December. But the remaining entry deadlines are March 31st, which is the quote-unquote final deadline. But we will continue to take late entries past that date through April 27th, and we apply a late fee of $35 per entry after March 31st on top of the entry fee. We'll talk about entry fees in a moment. Preliminary judging will begin right after the March 31st deadline and go through mid-May. That process determines the finalists. Finalists will then be notified by email on Wednesday, May 11th, and then we will publicly announce the finalists via press release on the website on Thursday, May 12th. We always announce the finalists a day before the public announcement so that you have a heads up that you're going to be published as a finalist the following day, so that if you choose to, you've got at least a day to prepare your own press notice, your own press release, and get that out to coincide with our public announcement. And we do make tools available to finalists to help them do that, including press release templates. Once finalists are announced, the final judging will take place in late May, early June. That will determine the Stevie Award winners in each category, and they will be announced on Monday, June 20th at our 9th Annual Awards Banquet at the Marriott Marquis Hotel in New York City. The event is very Oscar-like in that we do not pre-announce the winners. We do not tip off the winners. Finalists are not obliged to come. They don't have to come to win. But if they do come, they don't know in advance that they won. So it does make for a fairly dramatic evening. We have had Oscar-like acceptance speeches with crying and thanking one's public school teachers and one's parents. And we do give each Stevie Award winner the opportunity to make a brief acceptance speech at the event. And I'll show you later in this webinar where you can see some of the video tapes of past acceptance speeches. Who's eligible to enter this year's American Business Awards? As I mentioned earlier, it's open to all organizations and individuals in the U.S.A. And that includes organizations large and small, public and private, for-profit and non-profit. So the competition is not just open to companies, whether they're for-profit or non-profit companies. Competition is also open to professional societies and associations and even government agencies. It's about recognizing achievements in work, not just recognizing the achievements of businesses, so to speak. So we do get many entries from associations and government agencies, and we welcome them. For the most part, the 2011 ABAs will recognize achievements since the start of 2010. So in your entries, if you choose to enter this year, you're going to focus primarily on what the nominee has achieved since the beginning of 2010. Very often people ask, well, when is the cutoff? The actual cutoff would be the last day we'll accept entries, which this year is going to be April 27th. A couple of exceptions. The Best New Company of the Year category this year is for companies that began at the beginning of 2009, so they really started their activities at the beginning of 2009. Companies that fit that criterion are eligible to be nominated in the Best New Company of the Year category. And there's no eligibility time frame for the nomination of websites and blogs. It doesn't matter when websites and blogs were first published. And the reason for that is since they're living, breathing entities that are changing all the time, a website that was first published in 1994 is not the same animal today. So if you'd like to nominate your website or your blog, it doesn't matter when it was first published. There are 4 main steps to entering the American Business Awards. And the first step, and it's not required but it's highly recommended, is to request and to read through the entry kit. There are two places on the American Business Awards website to request it. Here on the home page, you'll see on the right-hand side there's a little form for requesting an entry kit. If you fill that out with your name and email address, the online entry kit will be emailed to you immediately. Interestingly, there's another link here on the home page to a longer version of this form for requesting an entry kit, and most people actually fill out the longer form for some reason. But if you fill out either version of those forms, you'll be emailed a link to the online entry kit right away. Now the entry kit, which I'll show you in a second here, points to relevant resources on the website. We do have a lot of content on the website, and the entry kit helps you to find the ones that are most relevant to the entry process. There are a number of PDFs linked to from the online entry kit, and when you get your entry kit, the first thing we recommend you do is to print out and to read those 4 PDFs. And they are an entry cover sheet, which you only really need to use if you're planning to submit your entries by mail or by fax. If you're going to submit your entries online, which we highly recommend you do, it's very easy to do. You don't need to complete the entry cover sheet. There's an entry form, and it says form, but it's really more of a set of instructions for the media categories, and there's another document with the instructions for all the other categories. And then there's a set of rules and regulations for the competition. Well, let's show you what the entry kit looks like. You'll be emailed when you request the entry kit a link to this web page, which, as you can see on the right-hand side under Resources, links to some important pages on the website, such as a summary of what's new and different for the 2011 ABAs, a list of the entry fees, answers to frequently asked questions about the ABAs, some notes about the judging process and who the judges are, and so on. And if you scroll down, you'll see the links to the PDFs I mentioned, including the entry cover sheet, the instructions for the media categories, and by media we mean websites and blogs, videos, annual reports, live events, and so on, and for all the other categories. So print out those PDFs. If you take half an hour to read those PDFs, you'll pretty much know everything about how to enter the American Business Awards. There are 2 register buttons, as you can see, on the entry kit, and once you've prepared your entries, the first thing you'll need to do is to register on the website, in essence create an account in our online system through which to submit your entries. And we'll get to that in a second. I'll show you how that actually works. As I mentioned a second ago, there are 2 types of categories. There are media categories, which include websites, blogs, videos, annual reports and other publications, interactive media, and live events such as sales meetings, new product introduction events, and so on. Then there are categories for everything else. There are categories that recognizing entire organizations and companies, such as Best Overall Company of the Year, Most Innovative Company of the Year, Best Nonprofit or Government Organization of the Year, and so on. And there are categories for individuals, from individual executives like Executive of the Year in many different industries, Marketing Executive of the Year, Human Resources Executive of the Year. And there are categories for departments and teams across various functions, such as marketing, HR, and IT. And there are a host of new categories for recognizing new products and services in multiple industries. Now, we've standardized the entry requirements across all the categories, which means that if you know how to enter one of the American Business Awards categories, you know how to enter all of the others. And similarly, if you know how to enter categories in the American Business Awards, you pretty much know how to enter categories in our other 3 Stevie Awards competitions. Let's take a look at the media categories. And these categories recognize media that were first distributed or made public since the beginning of 2010. And as I mentioned earlier, there's no eligibility time frame for website or blog entries. And this is the page on the American Business Awards website that lists and describes the various categories. As you can see, there are categories for literature, many different categories, industry categories, and specialty categories for websites and blogs, a handful of categories to recognize interactive multimedia productions, categories for video and film related to business activity, and then a handful of live event categories. The media categories generally require the following: a 100-word brief about the objectives and results of the work. I know that's a very short amount of copy to describe your nominated work's objectives and results, but the work is really judged on the work itself, and your brief is basically supporting material. The exception to that is for the live event categories. You can submit up to 500 words. Since you're describing something that can't be submitted in toto like an annual report, and you do need more text to be able to describe that event fully for the judges. So for the live event categories, you are permitted to submit up to 500 words. You're required to submit the nominated media elements themselves, whether it's an annual report or a video. And depending on the category and what's available to you, you can submit those materials online or you can submit them offline. Now, if you submit them online, the preferred method is to include a link to the online media materials in your online entry form. You do have the option, however, to submit the paperwork for your entry online and then to mail us your DVD of a video, for example, or a printed copy of the annual report for offline judging. You have that option as well. Optionally, you can provide creative and production credits for the people who you would like to be recognized if your nomination is a winner. Who are the writers, who are the art directors, who are the cinematographers, for example. So you can provide a list of those credits as long as you'd like it to be. Again, you can submit your entry forms online even if the work that you'd like to nominate is offline. And the entry fees for media categories are as follows: $225 per entry through March 31st. After March 31st, you will add $35 to that for the late fee. So after March 31st, it's $260 per entry for the media categories. Now for all other categories, and again, all other categories include the categories for nominating entire organizations and companies, for departments, teams, and individuals, and new products. The requirements, the wording of the requirements will vary by category, but in general, the requirements are the same. And that they include a 500-word essay or case study about the nominee. And again, nominee the term is used loosely. The nominee can be an entire organization, it can be an individual, it can be a new product or service, it can be a department or a team. That 500-word essay or case study will describe the nominee's achievements since the beginning of 2010. It's optional but recommended that you provide a set of supporting links for that nomination. Those supporting links can be to anything online that you feel support your case. They can be to product reviews, to video clips, to photographs, to customer testimonials, to news articles, to press releases, to work samples. Anything that you think is going to bolster the case that you've made in your essay, you can include. It distresses me every year that when we get so many entries that don't have any links. If you don't have any links to attach to include with your nomination, at least include a link to your own company's website so that the judges at least have an opportunity to read some more about your organization or to search for more information about the nominee. Again, in many categories, there's not a lot of press material available. For example, if you're nominating your human resources director for HR Executive of the Year, HR executives tend not to be press hounds. There's not a lot of press about them, but at least include a link to your organization's website so the judges have an opportunity to supplement the case that you've submitted with some more information. You are required to include a 100-word biography about the nominee or the leader of the nominated organization or team. So if you're nominating an entire organization or company, that biography would be about your president or CEO. If you're nominating a department or a team, the biography would be about the head of that department or team. If you're nominating a new product, the biography would be about the person who headed up the product development team. So that is a requirement. Now the entry fees for these other categories, and before that I'll show you what the category page on the American Business Awards website. If you go under the awards and then click on categories, you'll come to this page which group the different types of categories, and you can click on any of these. For example, if you click on Company Organization Awards categories, you'll see all the different company categories that are available. Many of them have breakouts by number of employees, as you can see. The entry fees are as follows. There are a handful of categories for non-executive individuals in the American Business Awards that don't have any entry fees. So you can nominate people in these categories for free. And they are categories such as Communications Professional of the Year for people in public relations and corporate communications who are not executives. Marketer of the Year, Support Staffer of the Year, which is one of my favorites. That's the category for recognizing administrative assistants and secretaries and administrative professionals like office managers. But for the most part, the executive individual categories have an entry fee of $200 or $250. Most of them are $250. There are a handful that are $200. For all of the organization, department, team, and new product categories, the entry fee at this point is $435 per entry. And again, for all of these categories, with the exception of the non-executive individual categories, you can add a late fee of $35 per entry after March 31st. One of the questions we get most often is, we'd like to nominate our organization in the American Business Awards, but you have a lot of categories. Can you help us choose the categories that we should focus on? If you were to ask us that question, we would ask you the following two questions. What do you want to be recognized for? And do you want to win a Stevie in any category or in specific categories? Now, your answer to the first question will help us narrow down the categories to several that we think might be of interest to you. Your answer to the second question will tell us, are there particular categories that we need to recommend to you, or can we recommend to you categories that meet your requirements but maybe aren't among the most popular categories in the American Business Awards, i.e. you won't have as much competition in them as you would in other categories. And the reason for that is that the 80-20 rule applies in the American Business Awards like it does in most other things in life, meaning that 80% of the entries we receive are in 20% of the categories. Some of the categories are very popular. Other of the categories are not so popular. And if you were to ask us for help in choosing categories, with few exceptions, we would recommend that you focus on the categories that don't get as many entries as some of the others. Now, the categories you see listed here are the 5 that get the most entries every year. They include Best Overall Company of the Year, Most Innovative Company of the Year, Executive of the Year, Best New Product or Service of the Year for computer software, and then the website category is Best Overall Web Design. Now, if you feel that you have an entry that's worthy of consideration in these categories, by all means enter the category. I don't want to dissuade you from seeking recognition in these categories. I just want you to know that you will have company in these categories. These are the 5 most popular. Very often people will say, our executive has done our chief executive has done a great job the past year. We really want to get recognition for him or for her. Executive of the Year is the one category you want to nominate in, and I said that's fine. You just have to understand you will have competition there. You will have company there. But if someone says, our company has done some innovative things this year, it doesn't really matter to us what category we're in. We just want to be able to tell our story the best way we can. Can you recommend some categories for us? I would probably recommend Most Innovative Company of the Year, but I'd look for opportunities in other categories that don't get as many entries, where perhaps you'd have a better chance of winning if your entry is about the same as any number of entries in the competition. So the bottom line here is, if you do have questions about the categories that would be best for your organization and your nominations, by all means call us or email us. We're very happy to help you find the categories where you'll have the best chance of winning. As I mentioned earlier, we treat all entrants the same. It doesn't matter whether your organization is a household name or a mom and pop shop. We will treat you the same. We will try to steer you towards categories that don't get as many entries, but we do understand that if you want to be in these categories or other ones that get a lot of entries, by all means go for it. There are a handful of new categories for 2011 that we want to bring your attention to. We've had Executive of the Year and Best New Product or Service of the Year categories right from the start of the American Business Awards in 2003. We've added several new flavors of them this year to recognize executives and new products or services in the health products and services industry. So those two categories are new. And we've totally revamped the Marketing Campaign of the Year categories. We used to just have a handful of them. We now have more than 40 of them. And I'll show you that page that lists them on the American Business Awards website. You can see we now have 33 industry-flavored categories for Marketing Campaign of the Year, from accounting right through utilities. And there are also a handful of specialty categories for marketing campaigns, such as Consumer Marketing Campaign of the Year, Online Marketing Campaign of the Year, Small Budget Marketing Campaign of the Year, and so on. So I encourage you to take a look at those. I mentioned earlier the first step, the recommended step for entering the American Business Awards, is to request, receive, and review the online entry kit. The second step, once you've written your entries, and again, I want to emphasize that, write your entries before you go to this next step, because if you've already written your entries, it's a very simple process that should take all of about 5 minutes to register on the website and to submit your entries online. So the second step is to register on the website to create an account for which you're going to submit your entries. And for demonstration purposes, this is the registration form, and you can see I put in some example text here for a fictitious company, and if there is an XYZ Corporation in Milwaukee, this is completely made up. This wasn't based on you. So let's say that XYZ Corporation in Milwaukee wants to submit nominations. You'll see that they put their name in the first spot. Now, if this entry was going to be submitted by their public relations agency, the public relations agency would put their name in the second spot, and they would also put their contact information below. That way, all of the correspondence about the disposition of XYZ Corporation's nominations would go to the PR agency. There's a place for a 400-character description of the company. And that is just background information. That's not part of the entry. That is a hard limit, so if you do go above 400 characters, the system will kick it out. It's essentially just 2 sentences about the organization. It appears above your entries in the judging system, so that as soon as they see your entries, the judges have some very basic information about your organization. So don't worry about that. Don't worry about including too much information in that. It's really just 2 sentences. So you can see John Smith, who's submitting these fictitious entries, has completed this form. Once he submits this form, he's got an account on the website, and I'm going to log you into this fictitious account that I created. This, again, is the American Business Awards homepage. You'll see on the left-hand side of the homepage there's a place for an account login. So once you've created an account, you'll never have to create an account again. If this is their first time entering the American Business Awards, once you create this account, it's a permanent account unless you ask us to delete it. So year after year, you can come back and log into the same account to create and submit your entries. Let's log into this account that John Smith has created. All right, so we're logged in. And I mentioned that the second step was creating the account. The second step is going to be, the third step rather, is going to be copy and paste your entries into the online entry form. So once I've logged into the account, you'll see there's a big orange button that says Add Nominations. Clicking that is the first step to creating an online entry, and let's go ahead and do that. And let's say that XYZ Corporation wants to nominate their CEO, Jane Doe, for Executive of the Year. All right, so here are our category groups, which are expandable. I'm going to go under the management categories and go down to Executive of the Year for Manufacturing. And if I click on the title of that, up will pop a brief description of the category. So I'm going to select Executive of the Year, Manufacturing, and go down to the bottom of the page and click Continue. And this presents me with the online entry form for that particular category. So I've already written some dummy text for this entry, some Greek text. So I'm going to copy the title of my entry into the entry title field. I'm going to copy the text of my entry my 500-word essay into the first part of the nomination. I'm going to copy my demonstration links into the link section. And again, if you don't have any demonstrative links that you think add value to your nomination, at least provide a link to your website, your corporate website. And then, since I'm nominating Jane Doe for Executive of the Year, let's plug in her biography. Okay. Now I'm going to save that nomination. And you'll see back on my account page, it lists my Jane Doe President nomination as being saved but not yet submitted. So it's akin to putting this into a shopping cart but not buying it yet. So what this enables me to do, let's say that I've written this nomination for Jane, and I've saved it on the American Business Awards website, and then tomorrow Jane receives a Nobel Prize. So I can go back in and edit this nomination and say, yesterday, Jane received a Nobel Prize, and I can save that. So let's say that I'm now happy with my Jane Doe nomination. I can also go back and click on Add Nominations and repeat that process for as many nominations as I need to. And let's say I create 5 or 6 nominations. Those 5 or 6 would be listed here. I could then select all of the ones that I want to submit by clicking the checkbox next to the title, and then clicking on the Submit Selected Nominations button. Well, that's going to tell me that the entry fee for Executive of the Year is $250. We're going to click Continue. Now it's going to give me the option of paying the entry fee online securely by credit card, or paying by check or bank transfer. Most entries that we receive are paid immediately by credit card, but let's say I want to pay this by check. It'll tell me where to send the check, and I can complete the process by clicking the Complete button, and that'll put my nomination into a pending state. And once payment is received, it'll be made eligible for judging and put into the judging pool. You'll see that now that I've submitted my nomination, there is a lock image next to my Jane Doe nomination. That means that once it's submitted, it can't be edited again. I can view it, but I can't edit it. So that prevents a nomination from being edited once it's made eligible for judging and put into the judging pool. If you've written a nomination and you're several weeks after the entry deadline, and you feel that you may want to edit it at some point, by all means save it. You can revisit it at any time before the entry deadline to edit it, and then finally submit it. Because once you submit it, you can't change it. All right, so we've demonstrated those steps 2 through 4 for registering on the website, copying and pasting your entries into the online entry form, and submitting your entries and paying your entry fees. And as you saw, if you've written your entry in advance, your entries in advance, the process of submitting them online is very simple, takes only a few minutes. So let's talk about how the judging process works. Judging for the American Business Awards and all of the other Stevie Awards competitions is conducted in 2 phases. The first, a preliminary phase, determines the finalists, and that's conducted by volunteers. Anyone can apply to be an American Awards preliminary judge. Here's the application form on the website, and you'll find a link to that on the American Business Awards homepage under Volunteer to be a Judge on the lower right. If you'd like to volunteer to be a judge, complete this form. Make sure you use your work email address so that we can verify who you are. And if we can verify that you're a professional with working experience in a particular discipline, such as marketing or management or information technology, we'll most likely accept your application, and you'll be assigned as a preliminary judge for entries in categories related to your discipline. Every year for the American Business Awards, we have anywhere from 75 to 100 volunteers to participate in the preliminary judging. All applications are reviewed and approved by our staff. Preliminary judging will begin right after the March 31st entry deadline and continue through mid-May till right before the finalists are announced. Almost all of it, again, is done online, with a few exceptions for entries that must be submitted offline. Entries are judged online. So if you want to be a preliminary judge, you can do it at your convenience, anytime, day or night, up through the May 8th, which will be the cutoff this year for preliminary judging. The average scores of preliminary judges determine the finalists, and we do acknowledge all preliminary judges on the website and in the awards dinner program. Here, for example, on the American Business Awards website is a list of professionals who participated in preliminary judging in 2010. The final judging, after finalists are announced, determines the Stevie Award winners in each category, and those participants are invited. And it's our tradition to invite the prior year's Stevie Award winners to be among the final judges for the current year. So the final judges for the American Business Awards in 2011 in many cases will be 2010 Stevie Award winners. Final judging is conducted by 8 committees and a media section board. Here in the board section of the American Business Awards website, you'll find a list of the 2010 final judging committees. The 2011 committees are being finalized now and will be completely finalized and announced by the middle of next month. So you're welcome to go into the board section of the American Business Awards website to explore that. Let's take a look at the judging system and how that works. I created a demonstration judging account for myself, and there's a judge's login on the American Business Awards homepage that takes me to this page. And if I log in, this is the judging homepage. And what I did just for demonstration purposes today is to assign myself some of the website categories. So you can see that there are always at least 20 entries in the queue presented to you as a judge, or if there are at least that many in the categories to be judged. So let's say I'm a website judge and I'm looking at these website category nominations, and I decide that I want to judge this Burger King microsite redesign entry submitted by BGD Partners in Miami. I can click on that title, and at the top is the control panel for judges, and below we can actually see the entry with a link to the website to be judged. You can see the 100-word brief. To view the website, I would click on that link, which I'm not going to do right now. But you can see there's a link to the scoring system with instructions for the judges on how to conduct the scoring. I can select a score for this entry. Let's say I think this is a terrific entry. I want to give it a 9. I would select 9 there. If I wanted to give it a poor score, let's say 6 or less, in this category, let's say that BGT Partners submitted just a link to the website but not the 100-word brief. I could give it a poor score because of that and provide a comment there, which I'm not going to do. I could then click the button that says Submit and see another nomination, submit and return to the judge's homepage, or I can cancel, which is what I'm going to do. So that's a very brief look at how the online judging system works. Before we discuss some best practices, I do want to remind you that you do have the opportunity to pose questions to us. Take a look at your GoToWebinar control panel as a place where you can pose questions, and we'll be happy to address as many of them as we can once we get through the next couple of slides. We're almost done here. In terms of some best practices, one thing we highly recommend is to read through past Stevie Award winning entries. We do publish most of them, 99% of them, on the American Business Awards website. And I say most of them, we do give Stevie Award winners the opportunity to redact any non-public or confidential information from their entries before we publish them. In some cases, the entries are so full of non-public information that the winners ask us not to publish them at all, but that's very rare. In many cases, we do simply redact non-public information. It's very easy to find those winning entries on the American Business Awards website. If you click on the awards And then on ABA honorees, you'll find the list of last year's honorees, and you can click on any of them. For example, under management categories, if you want to read this entry nominating the award-winning entry for Tony Nuzzo, the CEO of First Commons Bank in Newton, Massachusetts. We can read that. We can see that it was submitted by Tiziani Whitmire Public Relations on behalf of First Commons Bank, and we could read the full text of that nomination, including those supporting links. And if there had been any redacted content from this nomination, it would show as being redacted. So if you've never done this before and you want to see some examples of award-winning, Stevie Award-winning entries, the best thing to do is to read through last year's winners. Most of them are available. Do ask questions. It does not hurt your chances at all of winning a Stevie Award if you pester us with emails or phone calls about how to fulfill the process, about how to choose categories. We really do like it when people call us and ask us questions. We do want to help you, and don't feel that you're over asking. If you've got 10 questions and need to call us 10 times, by all means do it. You're not hurting your chances of winning. And believe me, we like to hear from you. We want to help you. It's very important to tell your story well. As you can see, you've got to write a story about your nominee's achievements, and it's important that you write well. If you do want to submit nominations and you don't write well, hire someone or contract with someone who does, or find someone in your organization who can take that on. It's important that you tell your story well. Again, as I said earlier, write your entries before submitting them online. We do recommend that you enter multiple categories. A good strategy is to write one nomination in such a way that it could be submitted to multiple categories. For example, you may want to nominate your entire company for Most Innovative Company of the Year, but you might be able to submit that same nomination in the category for Corporate Social Responsibility Program of the Year or Best Overall Company of the Year. It's a good hedge to submit entries to multiple categories. It increases your chances of winning because you don't really know, and in fact we don't know from year to year how many entries given categories you're going to get. We do have a sense of, the top 5 will always be among the top 10, but we are surprised from year to year on the number of entries that some categories get. So it's a good hedge to submit to multiple categories if you can do that. We do recommend that you keep up to date with us via our email newsletter, our Twitter feed, our Facebook page, and LinkedIn. I'm rather proud of our weekly email newsletter, which, as I mentioned earlier, Ann edits. What you're looking at now is the most recent issue from last week. This week's issue will come out on Thursday. It always features several profiles and Q&As of recent Stevie Award winners. It does include a calendar of upcoming events. So from last week's issue, you can see a calendar of upcoming entry deadlines and webinars and so on. So it's a good way to stay up to date with what's happening with the Stevie Awards to subscribe to our email newsletter, which most people do when they request the entry kit. A very quick summary of what's new and different in the 2011 American Business Awards, which is summarized on the website in the awards section. You'll also find a link to this page in the entry kit. But some of the most important things about what's different this year is we did institute shipping fees this year, which are nominal. They are $35 per Stevie Award and $7.50 per certificate shipment. And these only apply if you are an honoree and are not represented at the June 20th awards dinner to accept your awards. Again, you don't have to attend the awards banquet to win, and if you're not there, we are charging a fee this year to ship your awards. It's $35 per Stevie Award trophy and $7.50 per certificate shipment. So whether you won one final certificate or 20, it's only $7.50 for us to ship them to you. For the 5th year in a row, we did not raise entry fees this year. In fact, we have lowered entry fees for some of the categories, specifically for some of the categories for nonprofit and government organizations. Some of the categories I can think of are Nonprofit or Government Executive of the Year and Nonprofit or Government Organization of the Year. I believe there are 1 or 2 others for which we've lowered the entry fees as well. And there are a number of changed and eliminated categories from last year, and you'll find a list of those on that page on the website that I just showed you. The 9th Annual Awards Banquet will be June 20th at New York's Marriott Marquis Hotel. Every year it's attended by anywhere from 500 to 700 executives from across the country. It is broadcast live on radio every year by the Business Talk Radio Network, and every year anywhere between 800,000 and 1.2 million people listen to it. And again, for the third time, attendance is not required to win. A couple of other things before we get to Q&A. Sponsorships are available. There are various levels of sponsorship. All of them include benefits such as the ability to submit an unlimited number of entries without having to pay entry fees, advertising on the American Business Awards website and in the Awards Dinner program. So take a look at the sponsors page on the website if you're interested in that. We do encourage you to volunteer to be a preliminary round judge, even if you are going to submit entries. We do have the ability to make sure that you are not judging categories in which your own organization is an entrant, so you are welcome to judge other categories. And there are 2 other upcoming webinars which we invite you to register for. One on March 1st is about the Creative Media Awards opportunities in the 2011 Stevies. And that is a webinar that will cover all 4 of our awards programs. So if you're an advertising agency or a web design firm or a video producer and you're interested in learning more about the awards opportunities for your type of organization across all of the Stevie Awards programs, there is a webinar on March 1st, and you'll find a link to the registration page for that in the Stevie Awards Update email newsletter. And then on March 8th, we're having a webinar just like this one, but about the International Business Awards, which is very similar to the American Business Awards in its categories, but it is open to all organizations worldwide. And right now I see that it's just about 1:49, so we have 5 to 10 minutes for questions here. And Anne, I'll open it up to you. Do we have questions from our listeners today?
Well, yes, we do several questions, and one of the questions was if it would be possible to get a copy of this webinar, either as a PowerPoint or as a recording. And I think, did you already address that?
Actually, I don't know that I have addressed that. We are recording this webinar, and a video of it will be available tomorrow on YouTube. And if you've attended this webinar, you will automatically receive an email tomorrow via GoToWebinar with a link to that video clip on YouTube. So you'll be able to review this in video format again and share that video with colleagues if you need to do that.
Okay.
Next question.
Another question we have is somebody who wants to enter a specific product for, it sounds like a manufacturing product. It's to do with road and pavement construction. And she wanted to know if she's entering a new product such as that, where would that be entered, and what would the 100-word biography be on? And actually that's a question which a couple of people have asked, and I don't think they quite understood what the biography was supposed to be about. Okay, well, if we go into the awards section of the website under categories, and we're going to go down to new product categories. And here are the list of new product categories. For industrial products, the best category is P01J. As you can see, the P01 is all of the best new product or service categories, and J is for manufacturing, which covers industrial products in general. The 100-word biography for an entry in one of the best new product or service categories would be a biography of the person who headed up the team that developed that new product or service. So if Jane Doe is the VP of Product Management for your company, and Jane headed up the team that developed your new product or service that you want to nominate in that category, she is the person who should be profiled in that 100-word bio. Okay. Well, I hope that answers her question. Now, the next question is a similar category kind of related. Someone wanted to know if they were entering corporate social responsibility program of the year for a non-profit program which is part of an organization, not a company that has other interests other than just corporate social responsibility. Would the bio be about the organization or about the non-profit company?
All of the, that would be under the Company Organization Awards categories section. As you can see, we have CSR Program of the Year here. All of the bios for entries in all of these company or organization categories should be of the chief executive or the top dog at the organization that's being nominated. I don't know how to put it more plainly than that. Rephrase the question for me, because maybe I'm not understanding the question.
Well, the question was from Adriana. Her question literally says, if I'm submitting under the Corporate Social Responsibility Program of the Year for a non-profit program, which is part of an organization, is the bio about the organization or the non-profit company? And I think, well, obviously the bio would be about an individual, but I suppose it's the company description.
Well,
maybe Adriana can let us know and send us.
Adriana, why don't you email us offline more explicitly with your question, and we'll try to answer that for you. You can email us at info@stevieawards.com. Do we have any more questions, Anne?
Yes, we do. What chance do entrepreneurs or solo professionals have to win an award?
Well, for example, as you can see in these categories, we have separate awards in the company categories for companies up to 100 employees, up to 2,500 employees, and more than 2,500 employees. So in these categories, very small companies are not competing against very large companies. And in all of the categories, as you'll see as you read through the Stevie Award winning entries from the past, a key determinant is not how large or how well known your company is, but how well you tell your story. When you read through the entries, one of the things you'll notice is very often they don't describe world-shaking achievements. They describe achievements that are noteworthy, but don't necessarily change the world, but they told their story so well and in such a compelling way that the judges responded to it. So if you're a very small startup and you're working out of your basement or your garage or your kitchen table, and you've done some neat things, and you can tell your story in a compelling way, the judges are going to respond to that. It doesn't matter to them whether they've heard of your company or how big you are. What they're going to respond to is what you're doing and what you've achieved.
Okay. Another question here, which is actually quite an interesting one. If you're entering for a company that has two co-founders rather than just one CEO, can you include them both in the biography section?
Yes, you can. In fact, we get that question a lot. What you can do, for example, let's say you're nominating your company for Business Turnaround of the Year and you have two co-CEOs, you can submit a 100-word bio in that space for both of them. Sometimes people will say to us, well, we have three co-heads of our product development team for this product we want to nominate. In that case, go ahead and submit a 100-word bio for all three of them. Or for Marketing Campaign of the Year, there are 5 people who really shared responsibility for this campaign. We don't want to single out any one of them. And in that case, it's okay to submit 5 100-word bios in that section. But for most entries, there's going to be one person that you want to cite, and most entries, 90%, have just the one bio. If you have to make an exception for a situation like that, that's fine. You're not going to be penalized for that.
Okay. Here's a question which you sort of already answered, but maybe you could give in more detail. Somebody said, do smaller companies actually win?
Yes. In fact, it's one of my favorite things about the Stevie Awards is that small companies and big companies really have an equal shot. For example, let's just go through some of these categories. Let's go through even the company categories from last year. Look through the list of the winners here. Intermark Media, QLess, Exactly Corporation, Namaste Solar, NutriCap Labs, Constant Contact, Epic Media Group, Action Ambulance Service, Apple, Empower.com, Boost Mobile, Ford Motor Company, iHealthSpot, Millennial Media, Fisker Automotive. I mean, just from that list, probably only 30% of the companies all of us have heard of, Another 30% some of us have heard of, and probably another 40% none of us had heard of before they won in the Stevie Awards last year. So it really is a nice mix of big companies and small companies. And in some of the categories you'll see that, not necessarily in these companies we're looking at here because they are segregated by size, but in other categories you'll see small companies winning awards and beating out a couple of household name companies. So it really has to do with what you've achieved and how well you tell your story.
Okay. And a question here, if you're a finalist or a winner, is there a logo that you can put up on your web page?
Good question. Yes, we provide resources every year. Again, we're under the awards section. We go under Winner Circle. This was the resource page we made available to American Business Awards honorees in 2010. There's an honoree logo, one for Stevie Award winners and one for finalists, but they're almost identical. As you can see, we make them available in a variety of sizes. There's a high-resolution PNG format file, so if you'd like to include this logo on your product packaging, a number of winners do that every year. We do make available press release templates for Stevie Award winners and for finalists. You don't have to use the template, but it's available to do that. We also have a Stevie Award honorees group on LinkedIn, which you have to request a membership in, and we review all those requests. So you have another badge, a Stevie Awards honorees badge, that you can display on your LinkedIn profile. So we do make those resources available every year. As you can see on the left-hand side, there is a repository of honorees resources going all the way back to 2003.
Okay, I've got a question here. I'm not sure that I understand it, but it says if Bill is the CEO of X company and X company is a partner of a non-profit company, is the bio about Bill or the CEO of the non-profit?
Well, it depends on which organization is being nominated. If Bill's organization is being nominated, it would be the bio would be about Bill. But if Bill's organization is nominating the nonprofit, which is akin to a public relations agency nominating its clients, and about half the entries we get in the American Business Awards are from PR agencies or investor relations agencies that are submitting nominations in the name of their clients. Then the nomination would the bio would be about the head of the nonprofit. So it depends on which organization is being nominated.
Okay, that's what I would have thought, yes. Now, one last question here. How many people judge in the first round? I think you kind of addressed this already.
It's anywhere from 75 to 100. So if we look at the list from 2010, I don't recall what the number was. It was somewhere about 80 last year, I think. This is the list, and you can find that list, in fact, all of the prior year lists under the awards section and then under judging.
Okay, and I think they wanted to know what their qualifications were, and I think basically you also answered that, which is that they are people who have expertise in a certain area is what you're looking for.
Yes. For example, if you look down this list here, Michael Biondo, Vice President of Customer Service with Thumbplay in New York, was a preliminary judge last year. He was a preliminary judge of the customer service categories, in which we get a lot of entries. Mark Brando, VP of Marketing with Visual Mining in Rockville, was a judge for the marketing category. So if you're a professional with experience in any particular function, and we can verify your credentials, and one of the ways we do that is you need to provide a work email address, and we need to be able to look at your resume or your LinkedIn profile. If we can verify who you are, you're going to be qualified to judge some of the categories in the American Business Awards because we have functional categories for almost everything.
Right. Now, and as you also pointed out, we're in the process of putting together the committees to judge the individual category sections of the competition, and but people can look online to see last year's judges and committees, because part of that question was also who judges the final categories, and
yes.
Those people are very much more specialized into the different sections.
Yes. Well, we're a minute past 2 o'clock by my clock, so I think we need to sign off now.
I think so.
If any of you do have additional questions, by all means, please do contact us. And I think I've got one more slide here with the contact information. There we go. Info@stevieawards.com is our handy-dandy all-purpose email address. If you have a question at any time, by all means pose it. There's a telephone number for our main office. And again, a recording of this webcast will be available on YouTube tomorrow. And as a registrant for this webinar, you'll automatically be sent an email tomorrow with a link to that recording so you can review it again, and you can share it with colleagues if necessary. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day today to spend some time with us to learn about the American Business Awards. If you participate, we're here to help you. Just let us know. And thank you again, and good luck in this year's competition. And thank you, Ann, for sitting in with us today.
Okay, thank you, Michael.